Hi, this is Joe Ozimek with Environmental Service Division at Coachella Valley Water District. And for the next several minutes, we're going to be going through site-specific chemical training. This is a regulatory requirement from the state of California. We have to do this annually, so I appreciate your time in doing this. There will be a brief quiz afterwards just to make sure that you're retaining some of the information. It's a brief 4 or 5 question quiz, so if you're paying attention, you should have no problem passing that. My contact information is located there in the lower left-hand side. So if you have any questions about this training, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me or call me at that extension. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So let's get started. So our agenda and what we're going to be talking about over the next 15, 20 minutes, we'll be going over safety data sheets. And I'll explain to you how the SDS is organized. You may be familiar with this information already. If you are, that's great. The whole idea behind this training is to refresh the information so you're familiar with it. And for those of you that may be new, also to introduce to you some of this information. So we'll go over safety data sheets. We'll talk about the chemicals on site, and we're going to be going over basic spill response, very basic information. We'll talk about NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, what that's all about, and right to know. You have the ability to access these SDSs to get information to protect you and the environment. And if you want to get that information, I'm going to show you how to go about getting that. Okay. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your supervisor. So safety data sheets, 16 parts. This is a universal structure for all SDSs, regardless of what materials you're using. They're all equally important, but for the sake of time in this training and keeping it relatively brief, we're going to talk about the three that I've highlighted here: hazard identification, first aid measures, and firefighting measures. I would encourage you, though, after this training to go through and pull up the SDSs, review them so you're familiar with the information, because if you do have a spill or a release, you should know the safety issues and what to consider, and also to familiarize yourself with the properties of that material. So chemicals on site, what are they? And I've really looked at the chemicals that you use or store that are more prevalent in what you're doing. So diesel is used for backup generators to power those. Although you may not be involved with the generators directly, the diesel is on site. Ferric chloride, sulfuric acid with the concentration there. The polymer at the IXTP sites that you use: sodium hydroxide, calcium hypochlorite, and of course the hazardous waste sludge from the clarifier that are located at the IXTP sites. Okay, so this is what we're going to be covering and looking at the SDSs. Again, I appreciate your patience. This is going to be relatively mundane, repetitive, going through the information, but it's useful for you to know and refresh your memory on. So diesel fuel, what are the hazards? It is a flammable liquid. The vapors that come off diesel have a flash point of 125 degrees. It can cause damage to the organs if you're not wearing proper PPE, if it gets on your skin for an extended period of times. If swallowed, it can be fatal, and over extended chronic periods, if you're exposed to it repeatedly, can cause cancer. Okay, if you're exposed to this material, gets in your eyes, you want to make sure that you flush your eyes for at least 15 minutes. That's a pretty common theme in looking at all of these SDSs. We do have eye wash stations. Those should be available to you. If they're not, check with your supervisor, because you want to make sure that if for some reason, even though you're wearing your safety glasses, which you should be when you're handling materials, does get in your eye, you want to flush for at least 15 minutes, okay? Skin, if it does get on clothing, you want to remove the clothing and you want to wash your skin. Inhalation, you want to make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area. And if ingested, you want to seek medical attention, okay? Firefighting measures, dry chemical, and we have those on site as well. Ferric chloride can cause irreversible eye damage because it is corrosive. In this case, if it gets in your eyes, you want to flush for a minimum of 15 minutes. Emphasize that, extending it out to 30 minutes, but at least a minimum of 15 minutes. You want to wash your skin off as soon as possible because it is corrosive. If inhaled, you want to move to fresh air and seek medical attention. Decomposition when heated emits chlorine vapors. You want to be aware of that. Okay. Chlorine obviously is a very hazardous material. Firefighting measures I have listed here. Use your on-site fire extinguishers. If you do have a fire involving ferric chloride in and of itself isn't flammable, but in the event of a fire and it is heated, chlorine is an issue to be aware of. Sulfuric acid, from what I understand, the concentrations at your facilities are 75 to 99% concentration. It is non-flammable, but very corrosive. Sulfuric acid can cause issues with respiratory system if you're not wearing respiratory protection. It can get, if it gets in your eyes, there's an issue there, and you have to flush for at least 15 minutes, extending it to 30 minutes. Inhalation, again, just like the previous hazardous material that we looked at, you want to move to fresh air, get medical attention as soon as possible. Okay. One thing you want to make sure that sulfuric acid does react violently with water, so you want to make sure that when you use a fire extinguisher, it's a dry chemical fire extinguisher, which we have on site, and always wear your proper PPE, gloves, safety glasses. And the one thing I don't mention, when you're working at sites, especially if you wear contact lenses, in my experience, people have gotten things in their eyes, and wearing contact lenses cause a lot of problems with flushing your eyes. So with all these hazardous materials, you want to make sure that if you are wearing contact lenses, that you're wearing proper PPE, and that includes safety glasses. Preferably, if you do wear contact lenses, and you're not wearing PPE, you're not wearing your safety glasses, you should remove them at least. But always wear safety glasses. Druflock polymer, look at the IXTP sites. I've got the hazards listed there, exposure. If for some reason the dust does get in your eyes, again, flush your eyes for 15 minutes. I know this seems very redundant in terms of looking at the hazards, the exposures. Okay, it can't form combustible dust in air, so you need to be aware of that when working materials. Always keep the containers of the super sacks closed except when using the material, so you're not generating this dust. Combustion products, if it is in a fire, is CO, ammonia, and acidic vapors. So be aware of that if dealing with fire. It's an odorless material, which you're probably aware of, incompatible with acids and bases, chlorines and oxidizers. All right. Inhalation, you want to make sure that if you do inhale the dust because you're not wearing proper PPE, you should be, move to fresh air and seek medical attention. Firefighting measures we have listed there. Use your on-site fire extinguisher, dry chemical that's available to you. Okay. Sodium hydroxide, NaOH. Okay, high pH at or above 14, so it's very corrosive to the eyes. Repeated inhalation of dust vapors can cause permanent lung damage. Prolonged or repeated skin contact can cause dermatitis, can cause severe burns and eye damage if not flushed or washed, which leads to exposure. Items here in terms of eye, skin, and inhalation, which I have listed for you. Okay, when you are flushing your eyes, make sure if material does get in your eyes, you want to hold your eyes open and, irrigate and flood the eyes with water. Okay, it's important to make sure that you're keeping your eyes open. It's difficult. I realize it. I've had to do it myself. But you want to make sure that you're flushing the eyes for an extended period of time if the material, you do have that exposure gets in your eyes. Any fires that are related to or include sodium hydroxide, you want to make sure that you use the dry chemical fire extinguishers. The fire extinguishers that we have on site are good for all the materials that we have listed here, okay? And they're strategically placed in locations where you can access those. I do come out to the facilities on a monthly basis and also on an annual basis, and I do check the fire extinguishers. I know you're doing the same thing. If there are issues, I will let Greg Papazian at safety know, and you should be letting your supervisors know as well, because you always want to have your support equipment available, your firefighting measures, extinguishers, Also the spill kits that we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides. Calcium hypochlorite, okay, similar to chlorine, less corrosive. Recommended not storing where daily temps exceed 95 to 100 degrees. You want to keep in a ventilated area. Corrosive to tissues upon inhalation, so obviously you want to make sure that you're aware of that. Can cause severe burns and eye damage because the pH in solution is at or above 10 or 11. You want to be aware of that. It's harmful to swallow, resulting in burns to the digestive tract. One thing, if you do ingest any of the materials, some of the SDSs may indicate that you should induce vomiting. You should not be doing that. So I want to emphasize this on all these materials. Do not induce vomiting, move to fresh air. You want to make sure that you're contacting your supervisor and reaching out to emergency support and seeking medical attention. Let the professionals handle the response activities when exposed to these materials. Again, flush your eyes with water for at least 15 minutes, remove contaminated clothing, and rinse with water for 15 minutes. I've listed the firefighting measures here. It's not combustible under normal storage conditions, but is a strong oxidizer that does enhance the combustion of other substances. So if there is a fire, be aware that this is a catalyst. It'll just increase the strength and the intensity of the fire when dealing with those types of conditions. All right. So we do generate arsenic sludge wastes at the IXTP sites for the removal of the water. I have listed the symptoms of arsenic poisoning. The concentrations that we're looking at are relatively low in the waste, but nonetheless, it is considered a hazardous waste. And we should be aware that we do generate hazardous waste. I manage that material in its monitoring and also transportation and disposal. And as far as exposure, you really should have limited exposure to this material because it does go through the clarifier and drops into the drum that collects that material. Generally, we're removing that material when you're at or slightly above 55 gallons in those poly drums. Can cause skin irritation. If it's on your skin, can cause eye and respiratory tract irritation. Again, if it gets in your eyes for whatever reason, you want to flush your eyes for at least 15 minutes and seek medical attention. Obviously, wash the material off if it gets on your skin. You want to change out any clothing, and if the material does get onto your shirt or pants. Firefighting measures in and of itself, the sludge, the filter cake sludge is not flammable or combustible, but if it is involved in a fire, the dry chemical extinguishers can address that. Okay, so we have spill response equipment located at 3 strategic locations in the district. We have them positioned out in the field at well 6806 and booster station 88A6. We also am located in the photo location undercover at Palm Desert Yard. And what are in these spill kits? Okay, these are the materials. Okay, took it out of the spill kit at the IXTP well location, and we have the pads, which are those pink pads located in the lower right hand corner. We have booms, and we have the absorbent pads or the socks, and they fit neatly into the pig spill kits. Pig's a pretty reputable company. Work with David Pena and Scott and getting these kits for you, and these will really work well for incidental spills. They're intended for small scale spills, and we're not asking you to clean up large scale spills. If you're not comfortable with any incidental spill, call your supervisor. We always have our on-call ACT, which I can reach out to. Your supervisor would contact me, and I would call them for support. But if you do have a small scale spill, this is the equipment that you would use. So, and I've got the materials listed here. We have booms, the pads, the floor dry, non-sparking shovel, and empty poly drum. So the drum itself, this white poly drum, can be used for your spill response materials. So what's an incidental spill? So The materials that we just reviewed, I have listed under the hazardous substances column in their state, either solid or liquid. And there's a thing called RQ. RQ refers to reportable quantities. So when we have a spill, each spill is treated on a case-by-case basis. And when I talk with you or your supervisors related to a spill, we'll make a determination whether that RQ, the reportable quantity, is causing danger or harm to human health and the environment. Okay, meaning, can it affect drains? Can it affect groundwater? Can it affect a surface water? So there's a lot of factors that are accounted for when looking at reportable quantities. I'm not asking you to make any reports out to third-party agencies. That's my job, but I'm here to support you and doing the spill cleanup, the spill response, and we'll make the determination on whether they has to be reported out. So as far as what the thresholds are, there are conversion factors based on the weight per pound per gallon. And what I've done is I've looked at the reportable quantities and I've determined what those response thresholds are as far as incidental spills. So for instance, if we have a spill of diesel fuel, okay, the response threshold, considering the safety factors and what we allow you to clean up, assuming that you've had your HAZWOPER training, okay, if you haven't had your HAZWOPER training, you need to talk to your supervisor. And if you are going to do a spill cleanup, rely on the people that have been trained, okay? That HAZWOPER training does require 8-hour refreshers each year. So David and Scott, Domestic, do have a group of people that have gone through that training. Those are the people that are familiar with doing the spill cleanup, the proper PPE, and how to handle this material. So if we exceed these response thresholds, we want to treat them on a case-by-case basis. Whether you clean them up or rely on our on-call, we'll deal with that at the time. But you need to be aware that, this is what we're looking at as far as the materials and the response thresholds as far as doing the cleanup. Okay, so you're permitted to do cleanups up to 1/3 of the reportable quantity. As we approach those quantities, we'll treat them on a case-by-case basis. Okay. So as far as spill response, there's a little how-to video. You can cut and paste the YouTube video into a browser and it'll go through details. It'll walk you through the process in terms of how to do the spill cleanup. Some of you may have already been involved with it. If you haven't and you've had your HAZWOPER training, let's just walk through the steps. Okay, the first thing you want to do is clear out the area of any equipment, personnel, vehicles. Then you want to shut off any ignition sources because you don't want to create further dangerous condition. Stop the flow of the material. Plug the hole. Shut off the valve. You don't want to work against the spill. Then respond with the materials in the nearest spill kit. Okay. If you don't have the spill kit at your fingertips, shut off the ignition sources. Stop the flow. Contact your supervisor. If there's a support person in the area that can get the spill kit to you, that's what we want to do. And then respond with the materials that we reviewed, making sure that you've isolated storm drains, the floor drains, any waterways. You want to make sure that we don't impact those receptors. And then close any emergency shutoff devices on the surrounding equipment or drains. Surround the spilled material using the absorbent booms, those sausage-looking pink things that I showed you in the previous photograph, and work back toward the source of the spill, okay? And then clean from the outside of the spill toward the source, and then place the used absorbent materials in that 65-gallon white poly drum. And then only allow flow, any water, any drainage after the area has been cleaned up. We do have generic labels that are available to you. You want to make sure that you place those on the 65-gallon drum, identify the location, the accumulation start date when you cleaned up the spill, what the contents are, and then the physical state. Generally, if you're cleaning up this material, it's going to be solid, maybe minimal liquid. You want to check the appropriate box, and then identify the hazards. It's ignitable, corrosive, toxic materials. Reactive, seriously doubt you're going to be dealing with highly reactive materials. So it's either going to be ignitable, corrosive, or toxic. And that's really reflected in the SDSs that you have available to you. So like I said, spill reporting is something that you aren't necessarily going to do directly, but if there is a spill, we'll be asking some questions. It's not to get anyone in trouble. That's not what we're looking at doing here. We're looking at getting the information so they can properly report it to the to Riverside County. And the types of things that we're looking at are obviously the location where it occurred, the name of the person that was involved in the cleanup, the incidental spill, the hazardous material involved, and these are located in the center of the green box there. Estimated quantities involved because we need to have a sense whether we're at or above the reportable quantity, and then the potential hazards present or associated with the material. A lot of information here. I'm not expecting you to remember it all, but the reason that we do this is the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, which I have referenced there. And the form that I need to fill out when addressing these questions is located on the left-hand side. So I'm the person required to fill out this information with your support, and then to provide that to Riverside County, and it goes out to the state of California. Okay. Empty containers. I know we all generate these, and I've seen in the field some containers like this. I've taken photographs of them. So the question always comes up, when is a container considered regulatory empty? Okay, so I've got 3 checkpoints here on the left-hand side. When all the material has been removed that is physically possible. Okay, you've done your part in removing all the material. Less than an inch of material remains in the container. Okay, I'm not expecting you to measure the material, but I mean, if you look at it and you see that you have 1 inch or less, okay, that's sufficient. And then all material has been removed or painted out. Okay, so these containers that are shown in the center, if they were empty, you removed all the material in less than an inch of materials in them, you can either put them into the commingled dumpsters located at the Coachella Yard or the Palm Desert Yard, or you could conceivably reuse them. But you want to make sure that the labels are removed so that there's no confusion as far as what the contents are. If you are going to reuse them for whatever reason, you want to relabel them with the contents. Any questions? Just give me a call or send me an email. Okay, so we talked about SDSs and the hazardous materials that you use and store at the sites. And the one thing that I wanted to bring up is NFPA 704. You've all seen this this box, this diamond that has safety information. Where we use or store material at or above 55 gallons, 500 pounds, or 200 cubic feet, these placards are required. Okay, it's a regulatory requirement. The whole purpose behind these, if you didn't know, is to inform first responders if they're called out to provide support services. It gives them quick recognition as far as what the hazards are with the materials that we store on site. So what I've done is I put together a table for you, and I've listed what those hazardous materials are that we already reviewed. And I put the NFPA coding down as well, using ferric chloride as an example. So if you use ferric chloride as an example, what does 2 mean? So if you look at the health hazards, okay, it means that it is a hazardous materials because of what we talked about, the corrosivity of the material, the iron content in it. So it has a hazardous rating of 2. Something like water would have a hazard rating of 0. Something like a reactive material, something that's highly reactive, or something along the lines of, say, chlorine would have a very high rating, something of a 3 or a 4. Then moving on to the box for fire hazard, ferric chloride is rated 0, it won't burn. But say something like gasoline has a very, very low flash point, something well below 73 degrees, something below 0, okay, would have a very high rating of 4. Moving on to instability, okay, ferric chloride is relatively low, unstable if heated, slightly heated. Something that could detonate, nitroglycerin, for example, TNT, has a very high rating, instability rating. And then, of course, anything that needs to be qualified with a specific hazard, something that might be an oxidizer, chlorine would be qualified with an OX, okay? So that's what this is about. So when you look at hazardous materials, and you look at these boxes, this will give you a better understanding of how these are numbered and what those numbers mean. It's a relative ranking system to give both you and first responders, general public, an idea of what those ratings look like and how to protect yourself. Other important information talked about referencing SDSs. As an employee of the district, you have a right to look at these. You have a right to access these. So there's a number of ways of doing it. There's a nice app that you can access. It's free of charge. It's available through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. That's what NOAA stands for under the Cameo app. If you type that in, you can download this off the App Store and you can build your own library of chemicals, and it'll give you a quick reference guide, the identifiers, the hazards, response recommendations, physical properties, regulatory information. Basically, like I said, a quick reference guide. I use it quite a bit, and it's really a nice app that's free of charge. You also have poison control available to you. I've included the phone number there. You can also access the SDS sheets if you go to user programs and you look for the SDS Right to Know app. It's available there. There's also another location where you can go to, and that's on the portal, the intranet. Okay, if you type in safety, it takes you to a link where the safety data sheets are available to you. Double click on that and open up the library in the lower right-hand corner. And you can type in whatever chemical you want to see. We have all our SDS references referenced for all hazardous materials, both within domestic, irrigation, sanitary. They're available to you there. I would encourage you to look at those and be familiar with those. This PowerPoint presentation is also going to be sent to your supervisors. So if you want to go back through any of the information, it is available to you. Okay. So I appreciate your time. This is something that we have to go through each year. So I know it is mundane and it's long, but I appreciate your time. Like I said, if you have any questions or comments, my contact information is there to you. Okay. Thank you and take care and be safe out there.